Hello and welcome. If you want to see how I made this cute Beetlejuice bag in honor of the new movie coming out this month, then follow along and see how I did it and how I royally screwed it up at the end. These are the yarns I used, but you can use any kind you want. Thicker, bulky yarn works best for me when I'm making bags because it works up quicker and it's more forgiving. So for the bag and the strap, I used a bulky, chunky weight 7 yarn, one in black and one in white. For the heads, I used a bulky, chunky 6 weight yarn in black and in white. For attaching the heads, I just used regular medium weight 4 yarn in black, and the lips was a regular medium 4 weight in teal. And of course, the other stuff that you'll need, your crochet hooks. I used 2 different sizes, 10mm for the bag and the strap, and 8mm for everything else, including the lips and everything else. The eyes, I used 2 yellow beads and 2 red beads. If you can get your red beads to be smaller than your yellow beads, or the yellow beads to be bigger, whichever, that's how they are on the real one. So, but it doesn't really make a difference. And I just used black embroidery thread for that, and you'll need a needle, of course, and then a tapestry needle, scissors, and a red marker for the spots on the white head. I'll be using Loops and Threads and Parfait XL by Premier for this bag today. I will regret that later. These fluffy, they're so soft and velvety, but when you cut them, it's a huge mess and it was very annoying. They're both jumbo 7 size, chunky yarn, extra chunky jumbo 7. And I used a 10mm crochet hook. You can use whatever size. You can use smaller, thinner yarn, whatever kind of yarn you want. Next time I would suggest to use the blanket yarn that is thick and chunky, but not the velvety type because of the mess. 10mm hook. So I try to make it really easy by just counting 2 round numbers. So I chained 21 so that I have 1 turning chain so that my row comes out to 20 stitches, and then each stripe has 5 except this second middle black stripe. I put 7 rows on that one, but the bottom one is 5, 5, 7, 5, and then 1 row of black at the top. The reason I made the second black stripe wider by 2 rows was because this yarn, the 2 yarns were different brands, and even though they were both chunky, bulky 7, they were slightly different thickness, so the black rows were coming out a little bit thinner, and the first row looked okay, but then the second row looked much shorter than the other white rows, so I just added a couple rows onto that one, but I normally try to keep it just even numbers. And the first panel, just complete it like so and tie the end off like you normally would, but when you get to the second panel, don't tie off of this black top chain. We're going to keep that connected, and we are going to crochet, single crochet on the inside of our purse. So we're just going to put the panels together and crochet all along the outside edge on the sides and the bottom, just all the way around, and go from where we end up on this side to start the handle. So it's pretty easy. I like to do as minimal sewing as possible, as minimal, like, you know, extra work as possible, and it's minimal counting and all that stuff. So that's all we're going to do now. I've got my 2 panels, and then my second panel here, as you can see, I have got it ready to continue down. So I'm just going to stick these panels together, and when I do that, I have these tails cut that were from switching the rows, and I just cut them to like a short length, and then I'm just going to stitch over them in this single crochet that I do around the bag. So I'm just gonna, instead of going and tying them in, I'm just gonna crochet over them, making sure to like crochet them into the stitch, and that way I don't have to sew them in later, because I don't like sewing. I like to do minimal work. So I have my 2 panels together, and when we're done stitching in the seam of the bag, we're going to turn it right side out. So right now you want to have your panels with the outsides facing in. So you want the 2 sides that you want to be on the outside to be facing each other on the inside. And I have my black still connected at the top here, so we're going to stitch over these ends, and I will show you how to do that. And I'm not really going to count how many stitches I have. I'm just going to line them up evenly and go down the sides. I don't really want to pay attention to counting the stitches. Just make sure that they stay even and check it throughout that your panels are still staying even together. They should be identical, so it shouldn't be a problem. And I'm just going to single crochet panels together all the way down and finding good holes, put it in there. And don't be afraid to go kind of deep into the side, as in don't just loosely get to the edge, like you want it to be secure. So if you think maybe, oh, it's a little too much, too many stitches pulled in, try to just do the 2 edge stitches, but if you get more, it's okay. It'll just keep it more secure. I'm having a hard time finding the sides there. Okay. And I'm pulling these tails along the edge there so I can just stitch over them like that. Let's see, we're starting to get, starting to get it going this way and stitching over those tails as well. And you'll see a nice edge starting to form, and just go all the way down, do a U shape around until you get to the other end and stop there at the top, of course, leaving a hole, and we'll turn it inside out and continue on to leave it connected, we'll continue on to the handle straight from here. The seam, and this is all the fuzz left over from the tails, just from those striped color changes, and I have to go back and trim the tails and the little pieces multiple times after I finish this bag. Oh, it was a mess, so I would definitely suggest using different blanket yarn. The fuzz gets on, plus the velvet yarn, it just sucked the fuzz pieces onto it, so you have to lint roller it afterwards. It was a whole big mess, but it looked nice and it feels really good, and it's gonna work perfect as a bag, and it looked really good, so it's fine. But I would definitely use different yarn next time, and I'm probably not ever gonna use that velvet yarn ever again unless it's something where you're not changing colors, because the tail ends is what was the big messy problem. So the bag looks good now, and I'm going to start on the handle. This is what it looks like on the inside, nice and deep, perfect for the size that I need it for. Okay, so to start the handle, I'm going to make it 5 stitches wide so that the seam goes kind of directly in the middle of it. I'm just going to leave these tails here and stitch over them like I did around the edge of the bag so they can just hang out, which is what's leading to this giant mess of fuzz from the ends anyway. So I'm going to slip stitch 2 over from the center where I left off, and then I'm going to go up on top of that, and then on top of that stitch I slip stitched into, and go back and stitch 5. So I will show you here. I'm going to just slip stitch 1 and then slip stitch another one, and then here, well, you can do it. There we go. I'm going to go up, so I'm just going to just go up and do a stitch right above there where I left off on that last one, and then I'm gonna turn it around and just start stitching over like normal into that stitch that I'm in. So 1, 2, and then 3, and then I'll just stitch over those end tails that I left behind, and it's gonna feel thick, but you can just stitch over it tightly and it'll be fine. I always do. I just do lazy bags because these bags are gonna just be my normal wear and tear bags every day, so I'm not worried about them being perfect or perfectly stitched because they're gonna get dirty and flung around at my job and stuff like that. So I just want them to look kind of cool and hold my stuff. And so now that was 4, and I'm just going to do one more. Oh, messing with these tails. A lot of tails because I changed colors. Changing colors, you know, so frequently gives me all these ends. I don't normally have that many ends to deal with, especially with a yarn that is so messy. So that was 5, and then, oh no, I'm sorry, I guess that was 4, and then I'll do the 5. And then I will just chain 1, like I do with when you were doing the stripes in the bag. Just chain 1, and that'll be your turning chain, so don't stitch into that one. Just stitch into your 5 that you just created, and we'll go back. And I go back and clean up all these tails and edges and the fluff and the little straggly ends after the fluff comes off. I go back and just trim all that with the scissors real quick. And so I'll just single crochet 5 over going this way, and then that's going to create the handle. And what I'll just do is, I think I did 5 rows of black, and then I switched to white and did 5 rows of white, etc., etc. So just kind of like you did the bag, except it's just the small handle part. I didn't do any fancy folding or anything like that. It's just going to be a wide strap. So the strap is finished, and I just made it as long as I needed it to, but you're going to want to end on the black color. So however you want, however long you want it, just make sure your last square, your last piece here is the black color. And then we're going to make a rectangle piece with 2 tapered ends for 2 rectangle pieces for the mouths, and we'll connect those at the end here. So the end of this strap is going to be where it connects to the purse, so you can gauge your length of it by there, and just make it as long as you want, black and white, and just end on black, and it'll connect like this. Once we connect the mouth parts onto it, the sandworm heads onto it, it will be this length when it's finished. So you can just measure your strap by putting it up to the edge there. And we're going to make separate pieces for the heads and connect them. So just leave this with a long tail on the end, and we're going to go and make the other pieces and connect them. They're going to be 2 split pieces that are connected together. We're going to connect them all together, and so just leave this handle like this with a longer than normal tail, because we're going to use that to crochet. I hate this yarn. We're going to use that long end to crochet with, and the fluff is everywhere. So I got exactly this much of the purse done on those 2 original balls of yarn, but instead of making the sandworm heads with the same yarn, the velvety yarn, I'm going to go ahead and switch yarns to 1 size smaller, and it's going to be the blanket yarn. So it's not velvety, but it blends in well enough at the end to match well enough. So it worked for me. You can, if you want, you can go ahead and get your velvet yarn and use more of that, or whatever. It really doesn't matter. The velvet yarn was a pain in the butt, so I'm glad I switched to the other kind for the heads, and you'll see how it looks at the end, but it doesn't look bad, I don't think. I also went down to an 8mm hook size, so just a little bit smaller than the 10 to work with this 1 size smaller yarn. It's a chunky 6 jumbo 6, whatever. So yeah, went down to an 8mm hook instead, and it doesn't really make it look different. I mean, once it's put together, it looked pretty good. So yeah, you'll see. So I crocheted a rectangle of 10 rows, and I'm going to fold it in half, and this will be the start of our first mouth. So I'm going to connect some white and make a couple rows and taper it down into a triangle shape, and then do a tip with black again. So I'll probably just do white and then black, and that'll be the end of it, and make it a point. And then I'll do one on this side, and I will connect the strap to that right here, and then I will connect that to the purse. So we'll do the mouths first, and that's what we'll go for. But I did 10 rows here on this rectangle, and we're gonna fold it in half. And I realized while I was editing this video that I could have just put one head on one side of each rectangle instead of two heads on each rectangle. I could have just put the heads that are sticking out and left the other side with nothing on it. That would have been a lot easier and quicker. I sure wish I had thought of that when I was making it. Okay, so I connected the white to the end of the rectangle, one end of the rectangle, and I did 5 rows of the white, and at the beginning of each row, I did a decrease. So every single row at the beginning, I decreased, and it makes it a triangle shape like that. So I did 5 rows of the white, and then I'll do 5 rows continuing to do those decreases at the beginning with black to have a black pointed tip at the end. So I did my 5 here, and I'm going to do the next 5 in black and just keep doing those decreases at the beginning of each row, and then I'll flip it over and tie the other one off. I'll flip it over and then do the same. So it looks like this when you're done, and both ends have a nice little point, and it doesn't have to be super counted or perfect or anything like that. We're going to do a little outline stitch for the lips with the teal color, so the edges don't have to be perfect. Nothing about it has to be perfect, and you're going to have a lot of ends to sew in. That's really annoying, but this yarn that I use, that I changed over to, is much easier to sew in. So when we connect it, it's going to kind of look like this. It's going to kind of like it's biting the bag. That's what we're going for, and we'll stitch that on there with some regular yarn weight for black, but I'll show you that later. So, and then this part is going to connect here. We're just going to attach both heads when we get the white part on the inside. So I somehow forgot to film when I made the long white piece that goes on the inside. So it's just like this, except you don't do any color changing. You just do the white for the tapered parts, both ends. I just made it a little bit longer than this one. So however long this one comes out, just make this one a little bit longer. I would say maybe about 2 inches longer, so that when you sew it on, it sticks out a little bit further. But it's just also a rectangle piece with 2 tapered ends, and it's all done in white. And so you can make it just like this without changing colors. You can start with the rectangle and then do one side and then the other side by connecting it, or you can start with 1 stitch and then increase 2, and then increase to 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 until you get it wide enough. It's probably going to be 5 or 6, and then just go that way until it's long enough, and then you can decrease it to taper it back down. So you can make it all one piece, or you can just do a rectangle with 2 triangles basically that you attached on either side. So that's how I did the inner sandworm. It's just a long rectangle piece just like this with the tapered ends, except it's just longer and it's all in white. Okay, I've got my 2 head pieces finished, but before I put them together and attach them to the strap, I'm going to add the lips around the edges with the size weight for teal, and then I'm going to add the eyes on there as well before I put the heads together. So I'm just going to put the lips on each side of each head, just on the triangular ends. And before I do that, I'm going to sew these eyes on here. I just used some embroidery thread. I used probably about 3 strands thick so that it's not too thin. Maybe a few more strands, I can't remember. And I just sewed it through the eye a couple times, and then just tied it really, really well on the other side. And then the thread disappears. So as you can see, it's done here. On the lips, I wanted them to curl up a little bit like that, so I didn't put as many stitches at the tip as you normally would for something like that, like a point. I put less stitches. I think I only put maybe 2 on the white head, maybe even 1, and then on the dark end there I put like 2 or 3 extra stitches, but I didn't put too many because I wanted it to curl. The more stitches you put in there, the more flat it would be, so I wanted it to kind of curl up, and I only did a few stitches in the ends at the top of those tips, the triangle tops, whatever you want to call it, of the heads, the tips of the mouth. And so that gives it the little curl. And I just did 1 single stitch around each side and just tied off at each corner of the mouth like that. And then when I put these parts together, I just stitched through it, and it is very thick to stitch through both of those heads, but I really didn't do it any special kind of way. You can do it however you can. Just get the hook through both heads and pull stitches through to be able to connect it to the strap and just make it secure. That's all I did. And this is what it looked like when it was attached. It didn't look great, but it's black. The black yarn just blends in, and this part's going to be hidden, so where it's kind of messy looking there, it doesn't matter. You don't even have to crochet it. You could just stitch it with your tapestry needle and the yarn, however which way you want to attach it. It's going to blend in on the outside, and it's going to be hidden on the inside, so it doesn't matter if it's messy. So this is the weight for regular weight, just basic yarn, any brand. This is Loops and Threads, but it doesn't matter what kind. It's just your regular weight for yarn in black. That's what we're going to use to stitch the sandworm heads to the purse and attach the strap. So I'm just going to attach the heads as if they're biting it. I got it laid out flat now to where the side seams are flat so I can see it better. I'm going to stick the bottom in and then just fold these over like this and stitch through, and I'll stitch through the outside and then I turn it inside out and I do the inside. So I do them separate, but like I said, this yarn, thick yarn, is really easy to hide flaws and mistakes and stuff like that, so you won't be able to tell that you have it stitched on the inside and the outside. It just hides in there. So I just use a big tapestry needle and the black yarn, the regular weight black yarn. And that yarn looks gray because of the white fuzz that came off of that velvet yarn. I have to take tape and pull it off of there later. But anyway, so I'm just gonna stitch down the side until I get the opening of the first sandworm, and then I'll just continue stitching into the white and not the top one, so that the top mouth is open, and then I'll just get to the corner of the bottom mouth. Okay, so he's all finished up. This part will come out a little thick, but that's okay. It looks pretty good on the outside. I'm gonna take a red marker and add some of the dots right here, like the real one has. Anywho, I totally screwed up on this strap. Looks okay, but I accidentally twisted it when I attached it, so now it's twisted. And I finished the whole thing before I realized it, so I'm not gonna go back and change it. So just don't do what I did. Make sure it's untwisted when you go to connect it. But other than that, it looks pretty good. And when it's like hanging on my shoulder, you won't really be able to tell. So, but it's easy. You can just wing it. Oh, like I did. Well, try to be careful. This yarn, I hate this yarn. I have to go back and cut some more off of these ends that are coming out because it's terrible. My God, I hate this yarn. I will never use this crazy thick velvet yarn ever again, but it looks good, or at least satisfactory, because I'm pretty rough on purses. It's just like an everyday carry around bag, so it'll get pretty dirty and stuff, but it looks cute. Looks cute. Replace my Minecraft bag that's worn out. And that's it. Good luck trying to make it. Like I said, I just kind of just winged it, wung it, and boop boop. There we go, just like that. Now I got me a real little sandworm there. Oh my God, it's actually pretty cute. So, yep, that's it. I'm gonna trim off a couple little more things, but overall it's okay. The strap looks terrible because trying to weave in these ends with this yarn was a nightmare. Look, it's still coming out and I can't. Ugh. I messed with this for so long. So I would suggest, I don't know what, because weaving in yarn or weaving in the ends already sucks, and this yarn really was not pleasant, and my strap looks terrible. And if I felt like I would probably redo this strap if this wasn't just going to be a knock around everyday purse. If this was like, you know, being made for sale or for an event or something like that, then I would definitely redo this whole strap. I think mine turned out terrible, but the bag and the sandworm part came out just like I figured it would in my head. So I'm pretty happy with that part. So if you have any questions, I might be able to help you. I don't know. I messed my strap up pretty bad, but yeah, you can do it. Easy peasy. And this is the final result. Thanks for watching. If you're all the way this far at the end, thank you so much. And I hope you make a bag, and I hope it turns out better than mine, the strap at least, because but once it's finished, once I trimmed it up more, it came out pretty good. So it looks okay, and of course it'll be on my arm, so I won't be able to tell, but it looks pretty good. And get that lint roller for sure with that yarn. Anyway, thanks for watching so much.